To Jerusalem now, and Yaakov Katz, senior columnist at the Jerusalem Post and a senior fellow at the Jewish People Policy Institute. Welcome back. It's good to see you.
Thank you, John.
So it seems right now there's growing pressure on Israel to work towards a two-state solution, which has essentially been in the deep freeze for a long time with the Palestinians, especially from the White House. Just last month, Prime Minister Netanyahu told reporters, "I'm proud that I prevented the establishment of a Palestinian state because today everybody understands what the Palestinian state could have been, now that we've seen the little Palestinian state in Gaza." He added, "I will not let the state of Israel go back to the fateful mistake of Oslo," a reference to the Oslo Peace Accord. So what Secretary Blinken and others now want would mean a dramatic about turn from not just Netanyahu, but his entire government, and that seems unlikely, to say the least.
To say the least, John, a two-state solution with the current government in Israel is not something that's at all possible, viable, or in the cards. Let's remember, this is possibly the most right-wing government that Israel has ever had. And as a result, a two-state solution is not at all any of their policy or any part of their campaign. With that said, I think what we saw yesterday with Secretary Blinken in Tel Aviv were comments about a larger and wider regional possibility of a normalization package with the Saudis, for example. That's a way that he wants to try to entice Israel to de-escalate, to look towards the day after in Gaza, to try to work together with the Palestinians and say that the way to do that, and what the cherry on top of it might be, is this bigger deal with the Saudis that you could see at the end of it all. But again, a two-state solution that sees a withdrawal of Israel from parts of the West Bank in the aftermath of October 7th, when we saw what happens when Israel withdraws from territory and what type of massacres and barbaric attacks it could potentially face, I don't think that there's great support for that in the wider Israeli public, let alone in this government.
Okay, so you mentioned the deal with Saudi Arabia as a potential cherry on top and normalization of relations with Israel. So also on Tuesday, we heard from the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the UK outlining how that could actually still be possible now. Here he is.
We've been at this for a long time and willing to accept Israel for a long time. It's a reality that's there that we have to live with.
But going back to
we can't live with Israel without a Palestinian state.
So basically, that offer is back on the table, or never left, if you like, despite overwhelming opposition from within Saudi Arabia to normalizations of relations with Israel. It seems there are others within the region who are willing to make hard choices and go the extra distance. At this point, why isn't Israel?
It's a very good question. And I think that we have to remember three parts to it. The first is Israel's still at war, right? And now is not necessarily the time for Israel to start talking about a two-state solution when it's still fighting what happened to the Hamas state in the Gaza Strip and what that state turned into. And the enemy that Israel faced on its southern border when Hamas had its sovereignty and its rule over Gaza, what it turned Gaza into. And we see these pictures every day, John. The hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of tunnels under the Gaza Strip, the factories to make long-range rockets with Iranian design, the attacks that are still being carried out against Israeli soldiers there. This is a war that still has to be fought. That's number one. Number two, a two-state solution, like I mentioned, for Israelis is something that's hard to digest at the moment, because what it entails is withdrawal from territory in the West Bank, or what some Israelis call Judea and Samaria, the hills that overlook Tel Aviv, Herzliya, the coastal plain in Israel. They think about Gaza, and they think about the precedent, and they say, can we now do this also in the West Bank? Do we want to have rockets now pouring down from two fronts into Tel Aviv? And then the third part is, you're right, though. There is that possibility for a wider normalization. We heard that from the Saudi ambassador in the UK. We heard it now from Secretary Blinken. It's not something that we should ignore, and we should have a government that should be thinking about the wider possibility here. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, this government is not going to be the one that's going to be able to make those moves because of the nature and its composition. Netanyahu is kind of stuck between the Americans who want him to move forward and very right-wing members of his coalition who will not let him move an inch in that direction.
Very quickly, you mentioned that a two-state solution is not possible with this current Israeli government. Is any solution to this conflict, apart from a military one, which is doubtful whether that's going to work long-term, is there any viable solution for this right-wing government in Israel right now?
I think that you and I will agree, John, that military action is a means just for a political resolution. We need to articulate here in Israel What is that political endgame that we want to see happen in Gaza? And so far, Israel has not done that. I think that is a mistake. I think that Israel needs to tell the world and also its own people, what is it planning to do in the Gaza Strip in the day after? We don't want to reoccupy Gaza. We pulled out in 2005 with the intention not to have to go back and to give the Palestinians an opportunity to be able to flourish there. Unfortunately, Hamas flourished and not the Palestinian people. Now there's an opportunity for a reset in the aftermath of this operation. But part of that requires Israel to say, what do we want to see happen there? And so far, we don't have that.
Yaakov, thanks for being with us. Yaakov Katz in Jerusalem. Appreciate the analysis. Thank you.